I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All you garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. Welcome here to the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I want to thank you all so much for joining with me here today. We've got a great show for you. It is our book club today. Today is the third Sunday of the month, and so we are doing our monthly gardening book club, and we should be having on the show here just a little bit later on Tony O'Neill from Simplify Gardening. His new book is Simplify Vegetable Gardening, and that is the book we've been reviewing this last month for our book club here. And so hopefully in just a little bit later, we'll see if we get Tony here on the show with us to talk all about this great book, and then hold on to as well for the later on at the end of the show, we will be announcing next month's book club selection, and we will be announcing that as well as giving away a copy of that book to one of our US viewers, or if you're international and want to take care of shipping, you can also get in on that giveaway as well too. We'll be holding that at the end of the show. So I also want to talk about yesterday, or not yesterday on the show actually, because yesterday we only got to meet Marcella and Shannon from Seedy and Shady AF podcast that I got to go on and be a part of their podcast. They reached out to me a few weeks back, and we recorded a podcast that will be released this Tuesday. And we talked with them. They were on our show yesterday. We were supposed to play an interview that I did also a few weeks back with Joe Lample, the host of the award-winning PBS show Growing a Greener World, but we ran into some technical difficulties. I think I've got it figured out, and we will run that feature coming up in a future Saturday here, coming up in a few weeks. But last week, though, if you want to go check out last week's Saturday show, we did feature Mike Van Duzy from Keep On Growing. Mike's a great do-it-yourself hydroponics, does a lot of like microgreens and all that sort of stuff. Has a really great following on Facebook, and is just a really kind of encouraging gardener. He's someone who's just really out there helping people get started and learning about all sorts of ways of do-it-yourself, kind of growing your own food. And that was a great conversation. Mike had been on the show before, so this was a return visit for him. And then we also met Jessica from Dream to Seed. Jessica has a really great Instagram, and shares all sorts of really great gardening reels and all of that. So she was a really great conversation. It was awesome to meet up with her. So you can go check that out, as well as last Sunday's edition we had with us every second Sunday of the month. We've got Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel. He joins with us to answer all of your gardening questions. And we had another great gardening conversation and got in lots of great questions from all of you viewers. So thank you all so much as well too for joining with us and jumping in there with all of those great questions. So yeah, and then next Sunday on the show, we are going to have another gardening roundtable. And this gardening roundtable, we're going to talk all about like urban orchards, tree care, taking care of trees. And we're going to have with us Tom Spellman and our from our sponsor Ivy Organics. We're going to have Charles Malky with us as well too. Both of these guys are really do a lot of work with gardening and growing trees and urban orchards and all of that sort of stuff. So I can't wait to jump in and talk about all of that sort of stuff this next Sunday. And then next Saturday on the show too, here we're going to have with us Vikram Baliga, the plant prof, the plant professor basically, and he's a professor and teacher of horticulture and plants at a university himself. Is a great gardening educator, puts out really great reels, kind of busting gardening myths and all of these sort of things that we see in all of these sort of garden reels that are out there. People are doing things and funky things with plants and all of that, and he breaks it all down. And the one thing I really like is that there's a lot of kind of weird things and strange things out there that kind of mislead people about gardening and growing. But then there's some things, because plants are strange, things are, you know, in gardens can be kind of different and new to a lot of us as well too. So there are some of those sort of things that are kind of strange and interesting that he breaks down about how they are effective and that sort of stuff. So they, you know, he really kind of makes sure he, you know, he's doing these reels in both kind of directions, breaking garden myths and also telling you about the ones that actually do work. So can't wait to talk to Vikram as well on the show next week. We will be following Alexis from at the Urban Garden Her. Alexis is Instagram at the Urban Garden Her. I'm at the Urban Gardener for me, but she's at the Urban Garden Her, and I just love that name and that title. I've been following her for a while, so it's going to be really great to have her on the show and introduce her to all of you. And that'll be next Saturday on the show too. So good, we've got lots of great things growing on right here on the Let's Get Growing show, and just really great to have all of you following along with me here as well too. So if you are here with us, again, be sure to click that like button, hit the thumbs up, click the subscribe as well too, is share with all of your friends. And right now I'm pushing comments. Let's make sure we get some comments in our replay. So huge shout out to all of you who are watching the replay. Thank you so much for joining with us as well too. It's great to have you here. And if you are watching on the replay or you are catching up with part of the show that you missed, if you did join with us on the live portion of the show, jump into the comment section and leave a comment. Just say, hey, how's it going? Let me know what you got growing on or something like that. If you got a suggestion for our show, a guest you might want to see us talk about, or even, you know, a book you might like to see featured for our monthly book club. So definitely get into the comment section. Those comments, those likes, those you know, when you're interacting with the show on that level, that really helps push us through the YouTube algorithm and gets us seen by more potential future viewers of the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely do that. And again, if you do have any questions or comments while you are here with us live, be sure to jump into the comments section. And I love to see all of your comments. I love to see all of you conversating and all of your great questions. Like I said, we had such a great turnout last week with Gardner Scott, and you guys just really came with all of the great questions, and it was just really great, made for a really great conversation with him. So definitely keep those questions coming, and keep jumping into the comments there as well too. So let's see who we got with us here today. Today we started a bit late, so it's great to see a few people who are jumping on early. We have Rick, who's really early for him. Not only is it early for Rick, he's in Australia, so it's a whole nother day for him. So I think I'm not sure exactly what time it is. I think it's approaching 5 a.m. or something for Rick in the morning, and it's actually Monday morning if I'm right. So for Rick. Adam's in the conversation there. Awesome, great to see you, Adam. Riverdale Gardens, awesome, great to see you. Let's see right here. And we've got let's see here. Serena in here too. Hi, at the enjoying the jokes for sure. Yes, definitely. Thanks for bringing the humor to the chat box for sure. Awesome to see. Let's see here. Jersey Girl joining with us again too today. Awesome to see you back here with us as well. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, yeah, Serena must have been, this was before we actually got going right here. She's, when are we gonna get started? I know. We have a little bit of a late start today, but that's all right. We're getting going here, and we're gonna get to our guests here just a moment. Let's see here. LP back with us as well. Right on. Everybody's already got a bunch of good comments already in the chat box here. Riverdale Gardens saying hi. Awesome. It's great to see you. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Excellent. Excellent. All right, so let's see here. Let's get moving on. We got a great show here today. Let's get moving on here. We got In the Garden. Because today I've got a co-host. That's one of the great things about the monthly book club is that we get a nice full show to hang out with our good friend Mark Lachey Colbert, who does our In the Garden segment. Awesome, Mark. There you are. How are we doing today?
Yeah, how are you?
Doing great. Great to have you here with us live on the show for our third Sunday of the month, the monthly book club.
Yeah, I'm super excited and enthused about this book club. It's been awesome. We started with Ellen Zakos last time, How to Forage Wild Foods Without Dying. This time we got Tony O'Neill, Simplified Vegetable Gardening. It's just, to me, it's exciting to dig into this stuff and to educate ourselves as gardeners, but then also to be able to talk to the author. What a privilege.
Yeah, exactly. And we got Tony O'Neill waiting in the wings for us right now. So
Yeah,
we're definitely going to move along right away here so we can get to talk to him here in just a few minutes. But we are in the garden right now. This is usually a nice, fun little recorded segment you do for us, showing us all sorts of things. I think, what did we cover this last week in the garden?
I think I was talking about soil structure, soil
Yes.
texture, which, you can determine the sand, the silt, or the clay, but then the structure, and I know Tony's going to want to talk a lot about this because it's a lot in his book, but the effect that all the living things, the soil biota has on the soil, how it glues it together, and how that soil then becomes like a reservoir for water and lets the air, the atmosphere get in there as well.
I really liked how you talked about like all the little pockets and the little places and things that, all these microorganisms and, and all these small, little bugs and things, will crawl in and out and create that, that what really makes a good living soil.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I was digging with I'm a garden teacher at a Montessori school, and I was digging in the ground with the first through third graders, and we were looking for various arthropods and things, but we were examining the structure and just seeing these chunks of soil penetrated by these wormholes, and then those become little conduits, almost like super highway for the springtails and the various going back and forth. So the soil is just amazing, and it really is a teeming ecosystem right below our feet that we're well to do to pay a lot of attention to it and take good care of it.
Yeah, it would, it's one thing to be able to observe it from our viewpoint as humans and people, but imagine, being down there at that size, at that level, and just seeing, I mean, it would just blow our minds away at the amount of life and the amount of things that are going on and creating just this amazing, soil that we can use, that we can
Yeah.
use to grow our own food, and the better our soil, the better our food. So the more life, the better, and all of that too. So I thought it was a great segment. So again, too, you told us where you teach at this Montessori school. You got gardens there too. You also got the garden up on the rooftop at Noble Rot, this 4-story building in downtown Portland, and you've got your gardens at home as well too. So you got all sorts of great gardening spaces. How things growing? Run through just real quick how things are growing at each of the gardens there.
Well, I'll tell you a little quick story from each place. So just this morning, I got on my mail yesterday on my front porch, a box with 2 live transplants of tree collards. So
Oh yeah.
this is offered by Territorial Seed Company out here in the Pacific Northwest. They're down in Cottage Grove, Oregon. I really like those guys. And they offer some, in addition to seeds, live plants as well. So I ordered these tree collards. This is a perennial kind of collard. And so I just planted my first 2 tree collards today. I've planted and eaten a lot of collards, but this will live years and years and years and give, leaves over the years. So I'm really looking forward to getting some experience with these perennial kind of vegetables. I mean, I've done asparagus and many others, artichokes, etc. But this is the first maybe perennial brassica I've done. I also ordered a sea kale, which is another perennial brassica, but they were out of that for this year. So I have to order that earlier next year. Anyway, I just planted 2 tree collards at home. I'm really excited about where that's going to go. Up at Noble Rot, I'm doing potatoes, Russian banana potatoes, but this kind called pre-nuclear, and that sounds very technological, but it's a kind of potato that they're growing out from a tissue culture, not one that's been grown in the ground. So they're actually starting it as a tissue culture in a lab, and it's apparently supposed to wipe the slate clean of diseases. Because apparently, as you grow and save your own potato tubers every year, you can get an accumulation of disease. So these guys restart some of their potato stock as a tissue culture in the lab, grow that out, and then the very first tubers that you get are called pre-nuclear. So they promise a 200 to 300% increase in yield. So I'm ready to try it and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And then at school, we're doing dryland tomatoes. So we have a big area where we have no irrigation at all. And each year we plant dryland tomatoes. There's a great book by Steve Solomon on dryland farming. And the essence of it is that a lot of water, especially in the Pacific Northwest, because we get a lot of water during the winter, a lot of water is stored in the soil. And if we space our vegetables at a very wide spacing and eliminate all weed competition, essentially the vegetable is going to find the water it needs in the soil without any additional water. And that's remarkable because we have about a 2.5-month drought here in the Pacific Northwest where we don't get a drop of water till about mid-October, starting usually around mid-June. So I guess that's 3 months.
Yeah.
So you can grow great tomatoes. I have grown some really great dryland tomatoes. The cherries seem to do especially well. Sun Gold performed incredibly. So I've got some more Sun Golds, but I'm always testing new varieties as well. So that's what we're doing at school. We got dryland tomatoes going in.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's a good way to.
All 3 gardens, max busy time right now. It's crazy.
Oh man, yeah, and I was talking a little bit about this yesterday. Is that it really is, and especially for folks, and all of us who got day jobs and everything as well to do, and on top of all the gardening things that we've got to get going right now, we've basically hit last frost date this last week, so everything's going in the ground. It's definitely warm enough to get things started. So we got things hardening off, things going into the ground. We've got new things that are getting directly seeded because the soil temperature is coming up and everything. So it's really go time right now for when it comes to gardening and getting things growing for all of our, especially all of our summer crops and all of that.
And let's not forget the winter crops, because we're right on the balance of starting to think about the winter season. I mean, it hit me this week. I'm like, I got to plant Brussels sprouts pretty soon. That's going in like maybe not this week, but probably next week. So definitely starting to think about those winter crops too.
Yeah, you gotta start thinking about those. And again, too slowly, the more longer ones, especially your Brussels sprouts, you want to get those started earlier. Again, too, and it's just you got to battle through trying to keep them alive and everything through the summertime. But man, if you can do that, you're in for a reward, because I just love the growth of Brussels sprouts when the cool season just starts to hit again, and they just take off and they just grow so awesomely.
Yeah, if all you've had is a frozen Brussels sprout, or a Brussels sprout from like the warmer parts of California, you don't know what a Brussels sprout is. You got to get some cool weather, local frosted Brussels sprouts. Yes.
Yeah, that's like they say though, when you get that cool weather, it really induces those sugars in plants. So you just get really the flavors and those, the sweetness of those sort of brassicas and things just really start to really get enhanced during the cooler part of the year.
Oh yeah. So, we're dreaming about that now, but boy, we got to pay up front, man. It is a piece of work right now. Just there's always something. I just never feel like there's a total down moment, but that's what we signed on for.
That's right. That's right. Again, too, it's one of the great things about growing and gardening, especially for all of us who are growing food, is that reward of all this delicious food that we get when we spend all of this time and effort in our gardens. So yeah, it's what makes it all really worth it when it comes down to it.
Yeah, we'll be
as busy as we get.
Come September and October, when the harvest really starts coming in heavy, we'll be glad we work so hard right now.
Yes, definitely. Right on. Well, that's great. That's awesome to hear all of the great things going on in the garden, and we'll look forward to more in the garden segments as we move on through the season here, and see all of the great things that you've got growing on in all these really awesome different garden spaces too. But I think it's about time that we get moving on here. We'll take a break or so and be back in just a few minutes with our book of the month club. Man, this is really exciting. Our second book of the month club. So yeah, right on. There it is. Yeah, right on. All right, cool. Just a couple more minutes, everybody, and we'll be right back. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Here we are back at it, Mark. We've got a really great book to feature this week, or this month, actually, for our monthly book club. We've been reading Tony's Simplify Vegetable Gardening this month, and just a really great book. Tony has been a really great friend of the Urban Gardener channel for many years now, and a previous guest on our show. So when I heard that he was releasing this new book this year, I thought we got to have him on. We got to definitely have him a part of our monthly book club.
Oh yeah, this has been a really exciting read. So let's get that guy on here and let's start chatting it up.
Yes. All right. Let's welcome to the show Tony O'Neill, Simplify Vegetable Gardening.
How is everyone? All right?
Doing good,
doing
Tony.
Great. How about you?
Yeah, really good. I just come running back from the garden because I've been there since about 8 o'clock this morning. And as you can see, we're going through a bit of a heat wave here, and I'm suffering.
You're catching some sun. I see you
I
are.
caught a bit of sun while I was up there.
Wow. So it's the end of the day for you, right?
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. So,
oh my God, so you spent 12 hours in the garden today?
Pretty much, yeah. I literally just come running across now about 25 to 8. So,
oh my. Yeah.
Hey, you've got to put the time in, haven't you?
That's right.
Wow, that is a true. That you're dedicated to your cause.
Well, the thing is, when you've got a full-time job and a family and everything else, and a large garden, you've got to do it when you can, So today, tomorrow are my days to get up there and get everything I need done, because I got other priorities throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about that lately.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about that lately, about, because I myself have a full-time job. I've got a lot of different garden spaces and things that I need to get growing and doing all of that. So we were kind of touching on that just a little bit ago too, about the timing, and especially this time of year, because this time of year is where like really everything's just kind of coming to a head right now, where
well, we've all been waiting for the last frost date, and
yeah.
Like our frost date is the same as yours, like middle of May. And the issue is we've gone from really cold weather to 20-degree heat in the space of a few days. And of course, I've got a polytunnel full of brassicas that don't like the heat, so I'm having to get them out before they start bolting and stuff. So it's been a long old day.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that. I just lost a whole bunch of radishes up at my rooftop garden because of the vacillation, just the heat and cold. Now we're settling into more even rhythm. So I'm looking forward to just things behaving a little more normally, but you put yourself at the service of Mother Nature, and you can't dictate her terms.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's the nighttime swing is the issue. Like when you've got a 20-degree day and like an 8 or 9 degree night, there's a 10 or 11 degree swing there, and plants just don't like that. So I've held off as long as I can, but they just got to go out now.
Yeah. Right on. So, Tony, we have got
while I'm here.
No problem. So we're here today to talk about your newest book, Simplify Vegetable Gardening. I've got my copy. Mark's got his copy. We've been reading it this last month, and full of lots and lots of great stuff. You want to take a few minutes there and talk a little bit about, just give us a general rundown of the book? And
so really the book is about maximizing what you have, because anybody can go and put a seed in the ground and get a mediocre sort of vegetable at the end of it. But when you understand the way plants work and understand exactly what they need, then you can really maximize on not only the quality of the crop but the quantity as well. So and sometimes it's just really small little things, but if you don't know, you just don't know. So I wrote the book with that in mind, and so going through the book is firstly obviously why we need to start vegetable gardening and things, and then go on to getting the best out of them. So fertilizing and soil improvement and all this, that, and the other. And then towards the end of the book, I break down all of the plants into 16 families. And the reason I did it this way was to condense the information for the readers so that they can, like, if you can grow a cabbage, growing collie is very, very similar. And do we really need 2 different chapters on that? So we roll all the brassicas into one family, and then we will point out any sort of little areas where we need to change if over one thing or another. But it just allows you to condense that information rather than regurgitating information right throughout the book.
Yeah, I've often said I appreciate that because most garden books, I think, could be the size of a pamphlet, and then they go through exactly the same thing. They'll take you through their system for every single vegetable, but that's not the case with your book. I think it really is. It's condensed, and you spend most of the time on the really important stuff. One thing that I want to ask you is, most gardeners do not have as much dedication or knowledge of science and systems as you do. And I'm wondering where you started to acquire that as a gardener. Like, where in your gardening journey did you start to pick this up and realize this is where the gold is?
Look, I think, firstly, I didn't want to just write another book like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted something that was going to stand out and be a little bit different. And because of that, you need to take it a different route. And I wanted to go down the science way of understanding what is really going on with a plant, how that plant takes up nutrients, what it does with those nutrients, and then, how that benefits us. And that came about, like I said, I started gardening with my grandfather at the ripe old age of 7. So I was like 42 years ago. So over that 42 years, I developed that sort of love of gardening. And it's like anything else. When you start really enjoying something, you want to look more and more and more into it. And over the 42 years, I have gone through so many, books and things like that. But then a lot of books are giving the same information. So yes. I actually went to Google Scholar, and I started looking at all of the sort of experimenting they've been doing, around plants, and all of the sort of biology around plants, and how a plant works, and all of this sort of stuff. And what it's allowed me to do is understand what's happening at any given time. So if I'm looking at a plant and it's looking a little bit off, I can think, right, okay, this plant here is not taking up magnesium because of this, this, and this. Why is that? Because my soil, when I did my soil tests, was showing there was enough magnesium. Well, if that's the case, that might be down to an irregular watering, and all those little fine root hairs that take up the water have rotted off. So that allows me then to go, right, okay, while they're regrowing back, I need to foliar spray the plant for it to get the nutrition it needs, because it can't take it through the root system. So it just allows you to just sort of problem solve better. And what I find is I have really very little pest damage in my garden. I see so many people on social media moaning about being absolutely slammed by pests, but they're only attacking, weak plants. Don't get me wrong, I get weak plants as well, but as a general rule, stronger plants do much better, and by understanding what's happening, you can get a much stronger plant out of it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And again, that's making your soil thrive, makes your plants thrive, and those thriving plants, can withstand a lot more pest and have a lot more pest resistance the healthier and stronger they are.
It all starts with the soil, guys. And
it really does.
And it, everything I do in my garden, some people think I'm crazy. In the autumn, I was out collecting. We have these like big 1-ton bags, like bulk bags that you get sand and things delivered in. And I had 21 of them full of leaves. And then I spent 2 days shredding them to make leaf mold because, you know, it's such a good thing for adding to the garden. And then I'm making 9 ton of compost. It's so good to add to the garden, and biochar and all of this stuff, because I know the importance of getting that soil in tip-top condition.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's key. And like you said, then when you create that healthy environment for your plants, they're not sending out these signals of injury or
all the stress indicators. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. And again, you know, I mean, this is the other thing as well, you know, when you have like compost, for argument's sake, a lot of people think that compost is, you know, going to feed plants forever and everything else. But what they don't realize that happens with compost is it can actually absorb nutrients and hold on to it. So when, you know, we get deluge of rain and things like that, that would normally wash all the nutrients out of the soil, the compost is actually holding it there. So it doesn't lose it. And this is what we see after winter, and people start putting out things into the garden and they start turning yellow because the nutrition is being completely washed out of the soils, where, you know, they've not grown a green manure or a cover crop, or they've not covered the ground over to stop that sort of constant bombardment of the rain and the water, just, you know, literally taking everything out of the soil. Compost is just an amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's so true. And again, too, just taking it down also to some just really simple thoughts and simple applications, you know, when it comes down to what we can do with gardening. And when we look to nature and look to how these sort of things work, like you talk about leaf mold, I can't get enough of it. This next year, I'm actually going to go harvest more bags from neighbors' front yards, and I'm going to start mulching down more of it, because I'm about to run out, as I want to keep making sure that I use that for my mulching in my garden, which is really important. You know, leaf mulch, mold as mulch is really try saying that right. But that's really great stuff. And I've just found that my soil, the more I utilize that as a mulch, the more thriving it really gets too. And then again too, as you're saying about compost and the importance of adding that organic material and it creating that kind of sponge, holding in all of this sort of these great nutrients, great, you know, the moisture, and just all the sort of great things it does for all of these really awesome things in the soil. One of the things I love about the little tagline at the top, though, is you say veggie gardening with a side of science. And as we're kind of touching on that a bit too, is
that was a funny thing. That was originally going to be the name of the book.
Oh yeah.
Really?
And the publishers wanted to be able to tie it into like the channel and everything else. Yeah. And, you know, so we sort of had a compromise where it became the byline, but originally I'd wrote the book with that as a title.
Yeah, you should tell them they should listen to you. I think that would have made a great title. I love it.
Publisher knows best, doesn't he?
Right. I guess right. The veggie gardening with a side of science, and one of the things I find out there too, the more I have learned about, and I've, you know, been you know, digging into my garden over the years, is that, you know, having a great kind of basic science knowledge of what's going on in the garden is really kind of important to understanding things, especially in a day of social media like it is. I go out there and I see all throughout, you know, the year, different things that come up, and you'll see posts by people, and there's just this really kind of information that's old. It doesn't really, you know, it's myths maybe at some point and those sort of things. But when we start breaking things down to the real science of what's going on, I think things also kind of get a bit more simpler in the garden too, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as time has gone on, you know, we start understanding plants better. You know, when I started with my grandfather, you know, he was doing everything traditional. You know, he was growing potatoes in trenches and hoeing them up, and a lot of people still do that, and they grow fantastic, right? But as things move on, people try new things. Like I've tried with container potatoes, and I get fantastic results. And the reason that was, though, was because I had pest issues with wireworm when I was in my last garden. But then when I came to this garden, there's no wireworm here, so I could potentially just go back to the ground. But I have such good results from the containers that I stick with the containers because, you know, for me, it's easier. There's less work on the back and everything else, and it speeds up my work time, you know. And so as time goes on, people find maybe not always better ways of doing things, but they find ways that work for them. And that's important, you know. I think as a gardener, we all need to try things, because what might work for one person may not work for another. You know, it's different microclimates and you know, and different abilities, I suppose, as well. You know, like, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm 49, but I'm still quite healthy. I'm able to lug one of these containers into a wheelbarrow, but that's not for everybody, you know. So, you know, what's right for one person may not be right for another, you know, but you can only just put that information out and let the people that it is right for try it.
Yeah.
And I think if you do take a scientific approach to gardening, you're going to be oriented toward experimentation no matter what, right? I mean, there's a sense in which science is based on experimentation. So you're going to be trying things, you're going to be observing the results anyway. So it's just built into the system, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my whole channel started just because I wanted to put video clips. This is back in 2007, 2 years after YouTube started. And Google bought it in 2007. And I started a channel then, mainly because I wanted to save memory on memory cards. It was really expensive back then, and I was pretty poor. So it was a great way to store videos. But being a firefighter, one thing we do after every incident is, you know, what went well, you know, what could we do better, what didn't go so well, right? So I took that to the gardening. And so I recorded the videos in order to look back. So even right way back in 2007, I was doing that anyway. I was experimenting. Oh, that didn't work. Well, what if I try this? Or, you know, but the videos were there for that. And then eventually it became the channel it is now. But, you know, initially it was just there so I could look back on it, see what worked, what didn't, and what I could do, you know, next. So experimenting, I think, is quite important in the garden.
Yeah. Nice video garden journal. That's just really great.
Yeah. Yeah.
The funny thing is I didn't like writing, and now I've got 3 books.
Right.
That's inspiring.
Amazing where we end up when we get started on this garden adventure, right?
I know.
It certainly opens doors, doesn't it?
Tony, let me ask you something. The first sentence of your first chapter is our food system is broken. And you start the garden book. I mean, there's a lot of ways to start a garden book, but you start by really addressing, like, what is wrong with the current way we produce food? What are we doing to our children and our planet? Why was it so important to you to start that way? Why is your approach start with that kind of a message?
Because I think people are blindfolded, right? They listen to the press and this, that, and the other, and they don't really see what's happening in the world. All they see is cheap food on the shelves, right? Yeah. But they don't see the quality of the food that they're actually eating. And, you know, we have companies, I won't name any names, right? But we have companies out there that are even, you know, putting chemicals into seeds now, and, you know, they are even putting patents on seeds and stuff like that. To me, that's just absolutely crazy, right? They have monocultures, which is destroying the soil, massive machinery then that's churning it up, so we're getting all this erosion. And, you know, to me, I think we need to look after our farming industry, you know. And back when we were farming with horses and stuff, you know, we didn't have none of this. You know, today a tractor will go out there and it could farm like 130 hectares in a couple of hours. that would have taken horses like weeks to do. And so they were also, because of that, they were able to grow crops, multiple crops in a field, because they didn't have these huge tractors running through it and everything else. And that created biodiversity in the soil. When you start monoculturing, you kill off the soil in effect, because not only are they being reliant now on chemicals, but you put out one crop in a continuous thing like wheat all the time. Eventually the wheat is going to draw out everything out of that soil that wheat would normally take, and then it can't grow wheat anymore, because it's literally, for argument's sake, pulled all the magnesium out of the soil. Well, the issue you've got there then is you've got to start putting this back. And the problem that we have is the only way they were putting it back before was with chemicals. So we were getting all the runoff into the streams. You know, it was creating so many problems. And the quality of the food that was coming out, don't get me wrong, it looked pristine. When I was a kid, you cut into an apple, and before you even take your first bite, it'd be brown. You know, it would turn, right? Because the quality was there. But now you cut into an apple and leave it open, that thing will never turn brown. It will just, and it's got to make you think, why have they done that? You know, you never see any veg on the shelves that isn't quite perfect. And to me, you know, we waste so much food. You know, you got farmers dumping absolutely tons and tons of vegetables into a field in huge piles, because they've got to get rid of it, because a supermarket wouldn't buy it because it wasn't quite the right size, or it didn't have quite the right shape, or whatever the case being, you know. And I just think that's absolutely, you know, unbelievable in, you know, in today's society that we're to that stage. And I think by taking it through and getting people to understand what's really happening first and why it's important that we are growing our own food, then maybe they will go through the effort of actually understanding the science part of it, to be able to get that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that a lot of that's really important stuff, and it's great. I liked how you kind of started the book off like that. That's for sure. And I think one of those things too is that a lot of this, you know, is that expectations, you know, consumer expectations also as well too, when it comes down to like what we see in grocery stores and why, you know, they're putting out the most perfect thing out there, and so that expectation comes out there because a lot of us don't have a connection with our food system. We don't have that connection with our food. And it wasn't until I started gardening, and still I started doing that I started learning about my connection with the food system, when I started learning more about these sort of things that you're talking about. So I think that's just one of those other things, or those other traits of gardening that are really important, and I think is really great, because it, you know, not only do we get the experience of growing and all of these other things, but we also get this connection not just with nature but with food, with this, with the, you know, one of the things that's really one of the most important things to us.
I think one of the most frightening things I ever had was I would have done a school visit about 2 years ago, and I'm in the school doing a talk for this school who wanted to set up their own garden. So I just happened to ask the class, did any of them know where like specific vegetables come from? And they didn't have a clue. One kid even turned around and said to me, as does, you know, they just don't get that they're grown in the ground and everything else. And, you know, to me, you know, the education needs to start there. It has to start in the schools, because if kids are brought up on all the preserved foods and everything else, then they're just going to continue their life with that. And, you know, getting quality food is something that, you know, they won't even bother look at, because they won't know. All they've ever known is preserved foods. So, but it was quite a bit of a shock to me when not one kid in the class could tell me where like potatoes grew, like, and things like that, you know?
I'm with you there. That's my profession. I'm a garden teacher in a Montessori school, so it's so crucial to give kids those experiences. And just some of them, you know, aren't having it at home. It's just a fast-paced world, and lots of people don't have time to cook.
And a cost of living crisis doesn't help either, does it?
Yeah.
But like I said, a little bit of education could go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've realized this in your own life, but I know it's true for me too, that as you start gardening and as you come to appreciate the quality of food and the taste of food, you can't go back in a way. So you're sort of making yourself a more ecological citizen, but at the same time, you're making yourself into a better appreciator of food. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And again, like the people, my son and myself are both celiac, so we really rely on a lot of vegetables and stuff like that. So preserved foods are quite difficult for us to eat as well. So it's good that we grow a lot of the food that we eat, so that's even better there. If I was to buy it, then, am I getting the nutrition, There was a study done going back a few years ago, and they took a bowl of kale, I think it was, from like the 1950s, and they basically said that to get the same amount of nutrition from that single bowl of kale from the 50s, you'd have to eat 22 bowls now. So just to give you some sort of idea how much nutrition we've lost from our soils and the way we're farming and things like that. So, a lot of the illnesses that people are getting is probably diet related.
Well, yeah, most certainly. It just makes the most sense, right?
Which goes back again to your point about really taking care of, again, like one of the things that I really appreciated about optimizing the growth is this constant focus on the soil. Preserve the soil biota. Do not disturb it if at all possible. Remineralize it, use soil tests, use compost, all this kind of stuff. We really have to get the soil enriched so that not only our plants are healthier, but we are too. We're going to get a more optimal nutrition that way.
You get out what you put in, guys, so if you've got quality soil with good nutrition in the soil, you're going to get quality vegetables with good nutrition in the vegetables. If you're growing in soil and not taking care of it and just taking all the time, that soil become depleted, then the vegetables themselves are not going to have what you really need in them. It's why I spend so much time on the soil, why I wrote Composting Masterclass, because it is so important in the garden. Arguably, it's probably the most important thing in the garden.
Yeah. It really truly is. I mean, it's the medium for the whole existence of all of, what we get out of the garden is the soil. And again, too, it's when I read books like yours and other books that I really enjoy. I've got, let's see, Teaming with Microbes from Jeff Lowenfels, this whole series of things that he does, these sort of things, I learning again too, and becoming more connected with my garden, connected with what I'm growing. And it's through that experience that I've learned more and more about what goes on with the soil and how important it is. One of the things I think is interesting too, and is the idea of soil between growing in the ground and in containers as well too, because you really specialize in doing those container potatoes. We've touched on that just a minute ago. Rick asked this question just a few minutes ago too, and we'll tie it in with a little bit more of container talk here, but he was like, have you ever thought of doing a trench of potatoes, then put pots on both sides? Once they pop up, watering the pots will water the trench of potatoes.
I
guess you're kind of getting it.
I did an experiment a few years ago. It was the first experiment. I've run it a few times since, of growing potatoes in ground or in containers. And in that, I trenched 2 rows of potatoes, so there was 20 potatoes in each trench, and we grew 20 containers of potatoes. So in effect, we had the same number of potatoes. And here's the thing. So a lot of people's soil isn't the best, okay? But when you grow in a container, you get to choose the medium you put in that container.
Yes.
Right? You get to control that medium. And when you control that medium, you're putting the nutrition that's required in there. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying growing potatoes in trenches is a bad thing, because, still probably 90% of people out there will grow in a trench, and it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works fantastically. But when you start having issues with poor soils, or you have issues with pests like wireworm, things like that, then it's difficult when you go there. For me, it was really frustrating when I put a fork through a potato. Get out a really nice potato, I've put a fork through it. You can't store that potato then, or a wireworm have bored right through the middle of it. You can't store that potato. When I grow in a container, I tip that container out into a wheelbarrow, and I sift through that soil, and I get every single potato out in perfect condition. All I've got to do then is cure the skins, and I can store them as long as I like. The other thing that used to annoy me with growing in trenches was you never dig them all out. So you have these volunteer potatoes coming up in the middle of a bed of something else next year, So look, like I said, for me, I just absolutely love growing them in containers, and I've mastered that sort of thing now. I've got all sorts of systems going on for it. But it's not to say I would never do it. It's just that I just don't need to anymore.
Yeah, I like that.
If people are interested in that, there is that video on the channel. In fact, there's 2 or 3 of those videos on the channel, because I repeated it for a couple of years just to show. And I was getting like double the yield out of the containers than I was the ground. So, those videos are there showing the results as well.
Yeah, and Rob's allotment says, "And how many do you spear with your fork?"
I used to spear
trenches. So
it used to bug me so much. You'd get, and it's always the perfect potatoes that you speared as well. Like, it was never the ugly ducklings. It was always the perfect ones.
I love how you mentioned too about the volunteers, though. I grew potatoes out in my side alleyway garden a couple of seasons ago, harvested them all up. And then again, like you said, I was growing some completely other things in that garden space. And as they were growing there, I didn't even notice the volunteers of potatoes that grew. The plants had grown, died off. And it was later on, as I was cleaning the garden bed out, I found all of these potatoes that had been growing. And so it was a bonus. So it was great in a sense too, to get those bonus volunteers. But at the same time, I had no clue they were there. And you always end up leaving some behind.
Well, just to show you just how good compost can be, I threw potato peelings into the top of my compost a couple of years ago now, I think it was. And then last January, I harvested that compost. Now, this was in around the June time, something like that, maybe a little bit before. But they started growing. Now, normally I've got covers on top of my compost, but I didn't on this one because I was adding to it. And these buds just grew, and I just happened to leave them there. And in the January, I was filming B-roll of me pulling this compost out. And it just happened. It was only on a mobile phone. I was filming it, and I pulled 71 pounds of potatoes out of this compost bin. It was just amazing how much came out of it. I put that video on, like I grew 71 pounds of potatoes by accident. That's the name of the video. And it's all mobile phone footage, right? But honestly, I mean, it's like, talk about volunteer potatoes. I had a great crop for nothing, So sometimes volunteers aren't a problem, but when you're trying to grow something quite fine, and then all of a sudden these homes are pushing through the soil, it can be frustrating,
Yeah.
Bowtie says real quick here, Tony, that was a cool video. I remember that one. Go ahead, Mark.
Tony, let me go back to one of your charts, because one of the things I really appreciated is, well, one, you use the word pedosphere that not many gardener writers use. You hear, and you're talking about earth systems, you mentioned the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the biosphere, the lithosphere. Then you bring in that pedosphere, and it really it is the center of the chart, and it really is the center of our activity. But talk a little bit about that, just how you're trying to raise awareness of that, and why. important.
The problem we have, I think, with a lot of people who talk about like the atmosphere, what's going on, and the hydrosphere and things like that, is they talk about one or the other, or maybe a couple of them, but you're not getting the full story without it all, right?
Yeah.
And the pedosphere for me is the center, and again in the chart is the center there, because everything else interacts with it, and everything else has a part to play with it, right? So it allows you to understand what's going on, because, well, you know, the hydrosphere is affecting the pedosphere, you know, basically everything is coming in. So it's, to me, it looked, I see it like the center of a mind map. Yeah, you get all of these things coming in, so that there's things that will feed in to the main player, right? And to me, the pedosphere is the main player. It's what governs everything else. And you know, a lot of people, when they talk about stuff like this, they never talk about pedosphere. They talk about atmosphere. They talk about the hydrosphere and things like that, and what that will have a part to play in. But how can you really understand something without seeing the whole picture? You know?
Yeah.
You have to have it there, and to me, it's the core.
And I suppose for listeners, we should define the pedosphere if they haven't read the book. And that's really like the biologically active layer of soil, right? Above the parent rock, the lithosphere, but it's where all the actions happen.
It's the living soil.
Yeah, the living soil.
It's the living soil. So, like, a lot of people, you don't realize, like, Earth has like a crust, right? It's a very thin layer. If you were to expand the world out, you would see this just very thin line that goes right around the world. That's your pedosphere. It's the only thing that's living. You go down below that, there is no life at all. You know, it's all up here, and this is what people don't realize, what's under their feet, you know. But yeah, I mean, look, you know, this is what we want to govern, and all these other things play that part for making, you know, the pedosphere what it is. Without one or the other, then it dies. And you know, and people, they look at things like the hydrosphere, for argument's sake, and they think, well, this is what's playing a part in my garden. Of course it is. You know, they all play a part, but you have to be able to understand what this is doing here, what this is doing here, what that's doing here. And when you understand what they're doing, then you can understand, right, okay, now I've got this core here, now I can do this with that core. You know, this is why the microbes and things, getting that right is important, and all of these things have a part to play. It's why I was talking about earlier on with things like the erosion and you know, and the rain's just washing stuff out. It's why all the chemicals are now being washed out into rivers and things and out into the sea, because, you know, they haven't thought of that. They haven't thought, right, okay, what's going to, you know, what happens when we're putting chemicals on this soil? You know, what really happens down in this layer that, you know, we really need, you know? And even, like, you know, there are organizations now that are greening the desert, you know, and they're able to, there's not an article, a video on YouTube. I forget the name of it now, but they actually started work on this section of a desert. This was like 30 years ago or something. And they showed a photo of it before and a photo of it now. And it's like a green oasis compared to what it was. So just because it's turned to desertification doesn't mean it has to stay that way. We can manipulate that with changing all of these systems.
Exactly. It's like you said, we can allow life to flourish in that soil layer, or we can kill it.
We can kill it, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the way the farming industry's been working, and with these huge massive companies, like I say, I will name no names, but, you know, are interested in profits only. They're not worried whether or not you're killing your soil, because if you kill your soil, guess what? You have to go back to them next year, because for you to get good crops, you need to put, you know, your nitrogen on the ground and all these other chemicals. So for them, you having dead soil is great because it means profit. It's
I
a
was gonna say
guaranteed
that-
customer, isn't it? If you've got dead soil and you're a farmer, guess what? There's only one place you're going, and that's to them for the chemicals that you know you can still get a crop on. And this is why I quite like these farmers now who are going back to running cover crops and things and growing multiple crops in a field rather than a single crop. I don't know if anybody's seen the third series of Clarkson's Farm, and they took a field there. The yield was lower, but the quality of the food was so much higher in the nutritional value, they still pull the money out of it. But that yield will get better as they do it more and more. This was the first year they did it. And that will take time as that soil builds. They'll get better cover crops. And it's about using the plants that are going to help us, like all the legumes. They're putting nitrogen back in the ground. They're pulling it out of the air. They're fixating that onto their root system in these little nodules. That's all spread out throughout the ground. You terminate that crop, that all rots and puts that nitrogen back in the ground. So it's just, nature has the answers, but companies are too quick to monopolize on a chemical formula to be able to make a profit. And that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, we got a big American celebrity touting some bagged what they actually, and this is the key when you hear like these bigger companies or whatever tout things, but they refer to their product as dirt. And you got you know what you're going to get at that point in time. They're not selling you soil, they are selling you dirt. And again, that's just a great point about that, and how we got to watch out for that stuff and learn more and understand more about these kind of essential basics of plant science, soil science, these sort of things, and it just really helps us become a better gardener. You do spend like a good centerpiece of your book too, where you talk, just really, and we've kind of touched a little bit on some of this stuff, but maybe you can explain just a little bit more. Optimizing plant health, growth, and nutrients, and these sort of things. Really kind of, really tie in together. The importance of how we take care of our plants.
Yeah, I mean, look, right. So we're feeding the soil right in the first place, but then I'm growing other things in my garden like comfrey, and nettle and things like that then I am utilizing to make a liquid feed. I might go down to the seaside and pick up seaweed and make a liquid feed. There's so many things that we can grow in our garden, and you may not always make a liquid feed from it. It may be that you just cut that comfrey and it ends up in your compost, and that puts the nutrition into the compost even more, or you may just chop and drop it, right? But it's about having these systems in play, going and farming worms, if you like, and get yourself a little worm bin, because those worm castings can help charge biochar. Putting the biochar in the ground, that's creating these little sort of high-rise buildings for all these microbes to inhabit. The only issue with biochar that I think a lot of people don't realize is they don't charge it first. So when they put it in the ground, it sucks the nutrition out of the ground, because biochar, essentially, that's what it does. And but if you charge it first, so you soak that biochar in a nutrient solution, whether that's worm castings or something else like that, it's already pre-charged. You put that in the ground, it's not going to suck out those nutrients, and it will leach those out. But it's fantastic because the carbon in biochar is like all these little condo rooms, if you like, for the microbes and stuff. So that can help as well.
Yeah, that's really taking off in organic gardening. A lot of people are paying a lot more attention to biochar, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I mean, the thing is, right, like a few people have said to me, "Oh, can I ever put too much in?" Once it's in the ground, it never goes, because it's such a high carbon rate. It doesn't break down. It gets finer and finer, but it's always in the ground. But but the great thing is you can never put too much of it in the ground. It's not going to, unless you're going to, you don't charge it. At that point, it can leach the nutrients, like I said. But essentially, it's holding everything there where you need it, rather than it being washed away by rains and stuff like that. So it's a really good product.
Yeah.
You got any more questions there, Mark, for Tony?
Well, I just want to compliment you on something, Tony. On at the beginning of chapter 3, to me, I have at the side of my book, because I always write in books when I read them, I put in capital letters the gold with a bunch of exclamation points, because you give and this is where I think the book really earns its title, Simplify Vegetable Gardening. You give 10, and then you add one more, but 11 factors that influence plant growth. And I think that is one of the simplest and yet most accurate checklists. If everybody I'm going to probably laminate that and keep it in my back pocket, because you can just look at that. It's like 5 above ground factors, 5 below ground factors, 1 genetic factor. Here you go. If something's wrong with your plant, it's one of these. And this helps you. I think this is such a great chart. It's just a small part of your book, but I think it's me, it's like that belongs right in the middle in gigantic print, because it's so simple and so awesome. So thank you for getting it to that level.
I mean, gardening's not difficult, is it? Right? Things happen when you understand it, and you can put it down to like a factor like that. It makes it easy for people, because they can say, well, this is happening. Why? Oh, it's because of this. And once you understand that, it's like little light bulbs sometimes going off in your head, and you just think, right, okay, so, I always struggled with certain things. And then when I understood why they were happening, I was like, oh, ping, I only got to do that. And now this happens, and once you understand something, you understand it, and it becomes like second nature. You don't even think about it. You just go, oh, that's happening, right? Let's go and do this, and so a lot of the charts and things in the book are designed to try and help people think like that, and to get those little sort of light bulb moments going off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think
that's
it takes a master's touch to get it that simple. I got to tell you, because most of the time we tend to over complexify everything. So that the real,
I tend to do that, mind. But I just wanted, like I said, to condense the book, and hence the reason why we went into families and everything else. It was more about like my first 2 books. Like the first one was like 110,000 words, the other one was like 130,000 words, and this one is like 60,000, something like that. But because I really wanted to condense it down, I could have made that another 100,000 words, but the publishers were like, listen, your other books were big. we just want a normal size book. They had to rein me in a little bit.
Well, putting a limit on ourselves sometimes makes us think more clearly. It's like, what do I really
It does.
It's really important.
And it's why I probably had like 21 different revisions I had to do, and throughout the time, it's like, because I'd send it in and they send it back. Yeah, that's great. And then by the time it was sent back to me, I was like, no, I need to change that now. Do you know what I mean? So it was like 14 months of hell with them, because every time they were okay with something, I was like, no, I've changed my mind. I don't want to do that.
No doubt. That's really great. And again, too, like you said, these I mentioned this book earlier, The Teaming with Microbes, and I was actually talking with Mark about this earlier before too, is that you've got these books that are really get in deep, and they go really into the weeds, if you will, about all of these sort of things that you're just kind of really condensing down and giving us a really good knowledge of. So you get that whole series, or you could read this nice book here, which kind of just breaks some of that stuff down.
Though. I think most books.
Well, you should definitely
we should have it all.
we should always, and Mark will agree too. I mean, this is why we do the book club, is because we love books, and we love especially our gardening books and that sort of thing too. And this is a good starting point. Series. for getting you into some of these other bigger and more
I think
in-depth
as well now
books.
it highlights that people do want to learn this stuff rather than, you know, just taking it for granted. They want to know how things are working, and I think we're seeing a bit of a change in attitudes when it comes to what's happening, whether or not that's climate change based around gardening or whatever, because we're having a bit of an attack on our farmers at the moment, and you know, so maybe that's highlighting some things, I don't know, but there's definitely been a change in people's attitudes in learning about this stuff. Because if I'd put this book out probably 15 years ago, no one would have wanted to know about it. You know, it's evolution, isn't it? You know, things change, and at the moment people want to know about it.
Yeah.
Thank God. I like the fact that you list a lot of footnotes. I've underlined some for my own further research. So that's, you know, just again, like shows up that you're aware of these other sources. You want to send people to these other interesting things. So thanks for all that too. Yeah,
it's not about just people reading my book. It's about them getting extra information, especially if they want to delve deep. Because, you know, that's what happened to me. I started looking into one thing and then I went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I had to search that out. But if someone signposted it for me, it'd have been a lot easier and I'd have been straight down there. But that's what happens. I find one piece of information I really like that. I went down the rabbit hole, and before I knew it, you know, it was like 10 months later or something on that subject, and I'm still looking into it, you know. I'm just like one of these gardeners when I find something new and I think, do you know what, there's some merit in that, then I go down that rabbit hole and I keep going until I find the end, like, you know. And it doesn't always pan out, but most of the time it's pretty good info.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, Enoch and I are learning from this book group that it's just, you know, it's just a lifelong commitment to learning and growing and, you know, growing ourselves as gardeners so that we can go out and grow better food and better flowers and better trees and better everything.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we you know, we need to sort of like first off start with in our own gardens, make that change, you know, make our own family good first, because, you know, it all starts at home. And if enough people do that, you know, you can change the world. Like I've said, you know, they've shown that in the deserts where they've turned it green again, like, you know, so if they can do that in a desert, we can certainly do it in our backyards.
Yeah. Real quick here, Rick jumped in and he was asking about this question. You think COVID has been responsible for more gardeners growing their own food? I mean, we talk about food systems and all of that sort of stuff. I think a lot of, you know, there was a lot of movement in the gardening world during.
Initially, I think that was the case. What I think you saw, and it's why online gardening went massive over COVID. Everybody stuck at home. The only thing they could do was go in their gardens, right? So, you know, growing their own food was great. They were there. They were able to do it. You know, everybody was furloughed or whatever. But as reality kicks back in, a lot of people then realized, oh, hang on a minute now, I'm back in work and I still need to do that. And then that time, they don't want to give up their free time to do that, when they had all the time in the world when they were, you know, when they were during COVID. So I think what we saw was like a peak, and now we're coming back down to maybe a little bit higher than it was, but we are coming back down to reality now, like.
Yeah. Then Rob actually mentioned that right there too.
Go in peaks and troughs anyway. You always get that. It's like anything else. You can say, you know, you like motor racing would go in peaks and troughs over the years.
Right,
things change in time, don't they? They become trendy and and then you get the diehard fans like me who stick around, you know, 42 years.
Yeah.
We're all in that club.
Yeah. Rob from the UK as well, there with you, agrees there too. He says that a lot of COVID gardeners gave up when they had to go back to work. And I agree with that. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. There was just a lot. It was a huge kind of explosion, though, for everybody involved with the gardening world at that time. So,
and I think that's why we saw so many new gardening channels appear online, and you know, they experienced quite quick growth. You know, for a YouTube channel, you know, during that time, the new channels grew much quicker than a normal channel would grow. And then, of course, things have tailed off now, and then they're wondering why things have slowed down, because they came in and everything was great at that time, you know. So, but you know, like I said, it was great to see so many new channels appear. I just wish a lot of them had stuck around, but they didn't, because you know, even a new channel has some, you know, a part to play in this, and you know, they may only come out with one golden nugget that even I didn't know that can change the world over here for something else. Do you know what I mean? You know, you don't have to be, you know, an expert to be able to have valuable information for everybody to benefit from.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in a lot of other fields, like especially I'm thinking bird watching and plant observation, there's a lot of emphasis these days on citizen scientists and astronomy, various places where people who are just normal everyday citizens who may be passionate about something can really contribute. And I think that's a place where gardeners can really contribute, especially with scientific mindset, trying to do some experiments and then publishing in various ways, whatever it is, on your channel or whatever, in a journal or blog, your results, and sharing them with others. We can all benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the likes of YouTube, you know, it opens the world up to everybody to see that, doesn't it? And, you know, going back 20 years ago, you would have had to write a paper about it, and only the academics would have read that paper. Now you can make a video of it, and, you know, within a few months, it might do 1 million views. Do you know what I mean? It depends on the topic. So, you know, the way we assimilate information these days is so much faster than it used to be. And I think we can make leaps and bounds in especially if multiple people are experimenting at the same time, that can really make a big difference.
Yeah. More of us out there, the more of us sharing, the more we'll all know and be able to help each other have really great gardening experiences. And just a little bit ago, LP was saying, do us gardeners ever want to stop talking about gardening? And I don't think so. Us gardeners can sit here and talk about all of this stuff going on in our gardens, and talk about gardening books all day long, but we do have other things we got to do, right? So I really want to thank you again, Tony, for taking your time today to get out of the garden there and come and join with us for our monthly book club. It's really
put some after sun on my head now.
Exactly. I was gonna say, you got some good sun, that's for sure.
Watch the difference. Look at that.
Wow.
That's the real farmer's tan right there.
All in one day. So I'll suffer tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I always find, though, with the sunburn, it's really that first 24 hours. Yeah. And then everything just kind of goes down.
As soon as I get in the shower, I'll feel it, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. But again, Tony, thank you really so much for joining with us and contributing to the gardening world. This really great book, Simplify Vegetable Gardening. It's really been a pleasure for us to spend this last month reading and checking it out and learning so much more about our gardens, the food system, plant care, soil, the real important soil, and all of that as well too. So just really great. Thank you so much again too for being with us.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been great being here.
Yeah, great contribution. Lovely to meet you, and thanks for your time.
And you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks again. And we'll see you again on the show sometime soon, Tony.
Sure, anytime. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden, Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Awesome. Great.
Oh my God.
Great to talk to Tony there, right?
And just imagining Tony, working out 12 hours in his garden and coming to be with us. What a treat. What a privilege.
Yes, absolutely. Again, too. Awesome interview. And that's what's really fun about this book club, right? Here we got to read and check out this really great book for the last month, and then we get to meet and talk with such a great person and author like Tony, who just has so much great knowledge about gardening and great experiences as well.
Yeah, the real treat of hearing some of his personal stories and just kind of getting into his voice and his mind. And then now when I go back to the text, I'm gonna be hearing him.
Exactly.
We formed this just in this little hour. We formed this relationship with Tony, and it's so cool. Books don't just come out of space; they come out of people. So that
yes,
to get to know the person, to me, that's one of the most fun things about this book group is just we get to know the people who are writing these amazing books and making these contributions to our gardening world.
That's right. All right. So yeah, definitely great. And again, too, if you want to get yourself a copy of Tony's Simplify Vegetable Gardening, I've got a link down below in the description, and you can go and get yourself a copy of this book. We'll really encourage you to. I think it's great, and I think if you love gardening and science, plant science, soil science, all that sort of stuff, I think you're going to get a lot out of that book. He did a really great job with putting that together. So go get yourself a great copy. And we've got a new book that we've got to announce here for next month. And I just want to tell everybody real quick, we are giving away a copy of this new book to folks in our chat here, although I know we do have folks who are international. I know Rob's over in the UK, and we've got Rick who's over in Australia. I can get those books to folks internationally if you want to pay the shipping fees that come along with it. And I really apologize for that. I really wish we could offer it to everybody. But if you're in the US or you want to take care of shipping fees, just get into the comment section right now and put in hashtag book club. That's all you got to do. Is just write in hashtag book club, just that. In the comment section there, and as we're talking about our new book, we'll give everybody time to put that into the comments, and then we'll draw somebody out.
Now, Enoch, with our next book, we're gonna change the genre a little bit, right? We're going for a work of fiction that's related to gardening.
Exactly. This is a really fun, cool book that I found because when I was, and you were a part of this process as well too. I found this book in the process or the thoughts of like, what am I going to name this show?
Oh yeah.
So we were going through a whole like, what are we going to name it? And if you remember right, I was really kind of stuck on the idea of let's do the Garden Variety Show.
Yes.
And it was because we were searching out, trying to find out how is this being used out there? Where is this being used? And that I found the book Garden. Where am I at? Here we are. Garden Variety by Christy Wilhelmy. And this is a really, and it was fun because again too, we've got books like Tony's that's all about how or soil science. He's really getting us into science and plant care and those sort of things. There's really how-to garden books, how to get growing, and other books that are kind of more like nonfiction. We've got a great one coming up here in a few months as well too, but this one's a fiction book. This is some characters. This was created out of the mind of Christy Wilhelmy and her experiences in a community garden that she works out of down in Los Angeles. And so it was because of that community garden experience. And if anybody's been a part of a community garden, I have, and others have, there's a bunch of other characters involved, people that you get to meet and people who grow and do different things in the community garden, as well as especially for the community garden I grew in, neighbors and people who are around the community garden who are kind of involved as well on a peripheral level with the garden. And that's what this book is really about, is a bunch of people, and it's got the main character and a bunch of other characters surrounding this community garden and some issues that community garden has to deal with. And it's just a really great read, and I'm excited for everybody to go check this book out and get to read it. And then again too, we'll get to meet up with Christy Wilhelmy on next month's book club, the third Sunday of the month, which I believe here is, look it up, June 16th. So June 16th will be our third Sunday of next month, and that's when we will meet up with Christy Wilhelmy to talk more about garden variety. So you haven't had a chance to read this one. This one's going to be all new to you. I've gotten to read it. This is going to be all new to you, Mark.
Oh yeah. In fact, I think I said to you the other day I was going on Amazon to buy it, but I got distracted, so I got to go on today, and I got to get my copy soon here so I can dig in and get going.
Yeah. Yeah. And this again too, this is a different way of reading. It's one thing to read through a book like it's got all the pictures and charts and graphics and things like that you get in a lot of gardening books. This is a novel basically, so we really got to get down to doing some reading.
Yeah, you can't just skim it. You actually have to read most of the words in a novel to know what's going on.
All right, let's see here. I hope everybody, let's make sure everybody had a chance to put in hashtag book club, as we'll give away a copy here of Christy Wilhelmy's Garden Variety. And I know that whoever gets this book is really going to really enjoy it. One of the other cool things about it, though, too, is that she sprinkles in some gardening tips throughout the story. So that's one thing about being able to talk about a garden and these garden experiences through this fictional story. But she's also tossing in some gardening tips and things throughout the book as well, too.
Enoch, I hope people are sharing the news about this garden book group with friends and other gardeners they think would be interested, because, we're trying to build a community here around of garden learners, and this is how we're doing it with these books once a month. It's a great opportunity, and then you've been really skilled in reaching out to these authors, and so we're targeting to have the author each time. So I think it's just a very unique way to advance your garden knowledge, and through the power of the internet and this channel, we're able to draw this international community of people who want to do this work together.
Yeah, and again too, like we say at the top of the screen there, we're building community through gardening. The gardening community is just an amazing community of people, and I love for our show to be kind of that centerpiece that out highlighting and supporting and encouraging people within the gardening community. And through this gardening book club too, that's a really great opportunity for us to be able to spread the message of great garden adventures for everyone.
Absolutely. Spread the word. So spread the word, everybody. Let's get some more joining us.
Share, share, share. Let everybody know about our show. Let everybody know about this gardening book club, especially. I think someone here, I wanted to just mention something. Someone was mentioning, oh yeah, LP was mentioning, did I see Tony's comment? I think Tony was mentioning about his book, and that book we already gave away last month for this last month's, and that's kind of what we're doing is we have our discussion with our this month's author, and as we end that discussion and we get ready for and looking forward to our next month, we're giving away a copy of that next month's book. So that we'll be giving away today Christy Wilhelmi's book, Garden Variety. So all right, I think we've pretty much given everybody an opportunity here to get into the comment section. One last moment for anybody else real quick, put in hashtag book club if you want to get a chance to win the copy of this book. Let's get over now. Add to the stage our giveaway tool here. It's so awesome. StreamYard has this here for us as well, too. It makes it so much easier to do this. So, all right, let's draw a winner. Okay, wait 1 second here. There we go. Start collecting comments. Now let's draw. Let's see, who do we got? Who's going to win our book this time? All right. LP. Nice. LP has been really active in our comments today. That's awesome to see you as our winner of our book. Our Garden Variety by Christy Wilhelmi. Let me see if I can get that up there for everybody to see. Yeah. Garden Variety. So LP, all you got to do is, let me get this up real quick here. Send me an email real quick and let us know you were drawn there at Let's Get Growing at mail.com. That's not gmail.com, but just mail.com. Let's Get Growing at mail.com. And you can send me an email there, and we'll get your information and make sure we get that book out to you. Awesome, Mark.
Email, huh? You're just mail now. You're just mail.
Just mail for our book club and our drawings. We have a couple of different emails that we use. I'm sure you've seen me email you probably from every one of them, I'm sure. Right on, Mark. Well, here we are. We've done it. We've got another book club in the books, and we're looking forward to our next month's book.
We've had some great books. Our authors were awesome. They really just showed up and delivered the goods. We barely had to do any work. I think they're really lifting us.
That's right. I know too. And I just want each time I say this all the time, and I've gotten to interview so many great people through this show and my channel over the years. But every single time I'm just like, oh, I get a little nervous. I get wondering whether or not, how the conversation's going to go. But every single time it always ends up awesome. And it was just another awesome conversation with Tony today. And really, thanks again to you, Mark, for being a part of this and being my co-host and helping me out through this. I think this has just been really fun. And it's really really awesome to kind of have someone else be a part of the conversation too, and to contribute with some of those great questions.
Oh no, for me, it's just this feels like exactly what I want to be doing. It's just a way to advance in gardening. But I know I'm lazy like everybody else. If I didn't have this thing once a month motivating me, I'd probably let some of these books slide. It's the middle of the season right now. I'm probably not going to be reading that much, but this just keeps me honest. Keeps me. And with a great partner like you, it's just tons of fun. So I'm all in. Let's keep going.
Awesome, Mark. Excellent. So again, too, everybody, come join with us. It'll be June 16th. And we will have Christy Wilhelmi, author of Garden Variety, on. I'll get a link. I think there might be a link in the description below for a copy of Garden Variety, so you can get yourself a copy, read the book, and come join with us for that conversation. And also, we'll see you on one of our next In the Garden segments.
I'll be in the garden probably later today.
Excellent, Mark. We'll catch you later. I'm
Thanks a lot. Thank
I'm
you.
gonna close out our show and get moving along today. I got some things to get doing myself. So again, thank you again, Mark.
My pleasure. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. All right. There we go. Another book club in the books, as we say there. And again, too, I hope you all check out Christy Wilhelmi's Garden Variety, as well as Simplify Vegetable Gardening by Tony O'Neill, our great, awesome guest today for our book club. Just a really great conversation with him. Really awesome. And thank you all so much for joining with us here today. And if you can, before we head out, click that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel and follow along with all of our garden adventures. And be sure, as Mark also mentioned just a few minutes ago too, to share with everybody, share the show, the Let's Get Growing show, and this really awesome book club. Not very many gardening book clubs out there, especially one available to everybody like we have here on our show. So just really awesome again too. So let's see here. LPs. Thanks, Enoch. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tony. Awesome. Great to have all of you here with me. And again, to be sure to join with us for next week's show. Next Saturday, we're going to have with us let me get that, Vikram Baliga from the Plant Prof. He's going to be the plant professor. He's going to be joining with us to talk all about some gardening myths and such. So really going to be great to talk to him, as well as we're going to meet in our Are You Following Me segment, Alexis from At the Urban Garden Her. And then for next week's Sunday edition, we're going to have a garden roundtable featuring Tom Spellman and from our sponsor, Ivy Organics, Charles Malky. These guys are going to join with us. We're going to talk about fruit trees and tree care and urban orchards and all that sort of stuff with these two great guys with lots of great knowledge in taking care of trees. So that's going to be a great conversation for us next Sunday. So I look forward to seeing all of you this next Sunday. And thank you all so much for joining with us here today on the show. And I'll see all of you all next week.